While Indiana's front office deliberated over cutting key rotation players, Caitlin Clark made her priorities crystal clear. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull weren't expendable. They were foundational. This wasn't about personal preference. Clark had seen what happens when trust breaks down in a locker room. She knew that cutting ties with players who brought stability and cohesion could unravel more than just game plans. With the team at a crossroads, Clark stepped in, not to threaten, but to guide. She used her rapidly growing influence to draw a hard line in the sand.
If you're here for the real story and not the filtered version, subscribe. And if you're sticking around for the next meltdown, you better definitely subscribe.
Build around trust, or risk dismantling the core that gives the team its identity. The result? A recalibrated roster and a franchise newly aligned around its star's vision. Clark's stance reframed how leadership looks in the WNBA. It's not always loud or confrontational. It can be rooted in loyalty and foresight. Her move didn't just save two players. It established a new precedent for how young stars can lead from the center of a culture, not just the top of the stat sheet. The Fever didn't just keep Cunningham and Hull. They embraced a future led by a player who sees leadership as a long game, grounded in trust, not titles. Caitlin Clark didn't just join the WNBA. She rewrote the power structure the minute she arrived. And now, with one move, she's made it crystal clear. She's not here to follow the rules. She's here to set them. Her message to Indiana Fever management? Keep Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull, or risk losing something bigger than a stat leader. Risk losing your leader. It wasn't loud. It wasn't chaotic. It wasn't even public. But it was unmistakable. A player who just got to the league is already shaping how the franchise moves, who stays, and who matters. And that's not just about preference. It's about strategy. Caitlin Clark understands that no matter how good you are, you don't win titles alone. You don't lead a rebuild with highlight reels and solo heroics. You do it with people you trust, with teammates who know your rhythm, who understand the energy you bring, who back you when things get messy. Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull are those players. So when rumors started flying about roster cuts and shakeups, Clark didn't sit quietly in her locker. She didn't wait to see who would get waived or traded and then post a sad farewell message. She stepped in before it happened. She went to management, and the message was simple. If you want me, you need to keep them. That's power. That's awareness. And that's a player who knows exactly what she's building. She's not just trying to survive in the league. She's trying to build something real. A culture. A dynasty. And she knows that doesn't start with analytics or management decisions made in isolation. It starts with people. With loyalty. This wasn't a flex for attention. It was a calculated move to protect team chemistry and set the tone for what this franchise is going to be about. And Indiana listened. Think about what that says. A rookie steps into the room, and management adjusts. They don't just nod and move on. They stop, reassess, and keep the player she vouched for. That's not typical. That's historic. Caitlin Clark isn't even halfway through her first season, and she's already operating like a 10-year vet. Not just in how she plays, but in how she leads. And she's doing it without fanfare. No drama, no threats, no ultimatums blasted on social media. Just facts. Just influence. Just a clear understanding of what it takes to win long-term. Because what she's doing isn't just about Cunningham and Hull. It's about the foundation of the Indiana Fever. You want a winning team? You keep your core. You don't rip it apart because of short-term thinking or financial shuffling. You build around it. Clark sees the bigger picture. She's not in it for one good season. She's here to change what the Indiana Fever represent. And she's not waiting for someone else to draw up the blueprint. She's already doing it herself. Cunningham brings toughness, edge, veteran grit. She's the kind of player who absorbs contact, takes heat, and never backs down. Hull brings composure and smarts, clean footwork, sharp instincts, and the ability to stretch the floor or lock in defensively depending on what's needed. Neither of them are flashy. That's exactly why they matter. They let Clark be Clark. They give her space, balance, and trust. And she knows that. She values that. Enough to go straight to the front office and say, "Don't break this." It's not a loyalty test. It's a basketball decision, and a good one, because this league is evolving. The old model, where stars waited their turn, avoided conflict, and let management do its thing, isn't cutting it anymore. Players know their worth. And Caitlin Clark? She knows exactly how valuable she is. She's the reason Indiana games are selling out. The reason ESPN keeps showing up. The reason the Fever, after years of irrelevance, are suddenly at the center of the national sport conversation. But more than that, she's the reason this franchise finally has direction. And she's not wasting time asserting that direction. This is bigger than a rookie demanding influence. This is about redefining how that influence works. Clark isn't throwing tantrums or issuing ultimatums in the press. She's doing it strategically, privately, professionally, but firmly. And the league is paying attention. Because for years, the conversation in the WNBA has circled around how to grow the game, how to give players more control, more say, more agency. Clark just walked into that conversation and owned it, without a protest, without a power play, just with clarity and conviction. And let's be real, this isn't the last time she's going to do it. Because what she's doing right now, it's working. The Fever are stabilizing. Their culture is taking shape. And the front office is learning that the fastest way to a rebuild is not through constant turnover. It's through continuity. That starts with people. And Caitlin Clark has picked hers. She didn't do it for attention. She did it because she's invested, because she wants to win, because she understands that winning isn't about putting 5 stars on the court and hoping they click. It's about building a core that trusts each other. That kind of trust is rare. And when you have it, you protect it. So that's what this move was. Protection. Not of her ego, not of her influence, of her team. Caitlin Clark's leadership doesn't come from being the loudest in the room. It comes from knowing exactly why she's in the room to begin with. And now the Fever know it too. They've got something special. And they're finally realizing that when a player like Clark tells you what she needs, you listen. Because if you don't, you lose more than 2 players. You lose the core. You lose the culture. You lose the momentum. You lose her. And Indiana wasn't about to make that mistake. So here we are. Cunningham and Hull, still on the roster. Clark, still locked in. And the Fever, quietly becoming a blueprint for modern player empowerment done right. What's next is anyone's guess. But one thing's for sure. Caitlin Clark isn't just playing in this league. She's shaping it. Let us know where you stand on this one. Was Clark right to step in? Is this the future of leadership in the WNBA? Drop your take in the comments. Hit like if you respect this kind of player-driven culture, and subscribe if you're keeping up with how this league is being rebuilt in real time. Because Caitlin Clark isn't just making moves. She's making change. Caitlin Clark's quiet ultimatum might have looked like a simple roster plea on the surface, but let's call it what it really is, a line in the sand. This wasn't just about Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull. This was about control, about setting the tone for how things are going to operate now that Clark is in the building. And whether the front office admits it or not, she's running the temperature in Indiana now. Because once you become the engine of a franchise, the conversation changes. Your voice matters more. Your preferences matter more. Your vision becomes inseparable from the organization's. Clark didn't beg for that role. She didn't politic for it. She earned it fast. The moment she stepped on the court and started filling arenas, putting up numbers, and shifting national attention toward the Fever, she became the reason people cared about this team. So when she walked into the room and said, "These 2 stay," she wasn't just sharing an opinion. She was testing the franchise's alignment with her. And Indiana passed. For now, that decision, keeping Hull and Cunningham, did more than maintain roster depth. It reinforced something far more valuable: trust. Clark showed she's willing to invest in the organization if the organization backs her fully. She's not asking for shortcuts or superstar treatment. She's asking for consistency. She's asking for her team to be treated like a team, not a revolving door. This is what so many front offices still don't get. When a player like Caitlin Clark puts her name behind someone, you don't ignore that. You listen. You take it seriously. Because the alternative isn't just bad PR. It's fractured chemistry. It's a fractured locker room. And in Clark's case, it's risking the very momentum that has turned Indiana from a league afterthought into the center of attention. Now, let's not over-romanticize this either. Clark's not the first player to wield influence. She's just one of the youngest to use it this way and succeed. She didn't demand a new coach. She didn't go over anyone's head. She made a play that protected the core of the team she believes in. The players she trains with. The ones who know how to read her mid-possession. The ones who build her rhythm and keep the machine running when pressure spikes. And she did it because she knows this league doesn't hand you stable environments. You have to build one. Fight for one, especially when you're the centerpiece. So no, this wasn't just about Cunningham and Hull being likable or fitting a role. It was about culture. Caitlin Clark wasn't just trying to preserve her comfort. She was preserving a system that's working, a chemistry that's already rare in a league where rosters change like the weather. If you've been around basketball, you know what this means. Roster churn kills momentum. It kills buy-in. It disrupts development. And Clark, being a student of the game, has already seen that play out at the pro level. So she drew a hard boundary, and in doing so, she stepped into the role she's been inching toward since day one. Architect. She's not waiting for the front office to hand her a ready-made team. She's assembling the pieces her way from the inside out. And that's where the shift gets real. Because this is no longer a league where players sit back and accept the roster as it's handed to them. This is a league where voices matter, where influence is currency, where stars aren't just expected to perform, they're expected to shape. And Clark is shaping. She's defining who's in her foxhole, and the Fever are giving her the space to do it. This is the direction women's basketball is heading. Player-driven culture, athlete-led decision-making, influence that extends past the hardwood and into the actual structure of teams. Clark isn't just catching up to that trend. She's accelerating it. She's proving that leadership doesn't need to wait, that you don't have to have 10 years of tenure to make strategic calls. If you're the one putting the franchise on your back, you have the right to protect the system that lets you do that effectively. It's not power tripping. It's smart. Let's talk about how this ripples through the rest of the league. Other players are watching, not just rookies, veterans too, because this isn't a story of someone acting out. It's a story of someone acting with precision. Clark didn't break a single rule. She didn't demand headlines. She didn't throw anyone under the bus. She just stated what she needed to thrive, and the franchise gave it to her. That's the new standard. And this kind of agency, it's going to embolden more players to speak up. Because if a rookie can protect her teammates through sheer force of influence, what does that say to the rest of the league? It says, you're allowed to have a voice. You don't have to stay silent and wait your turn. That's the shift. And make no mistake, it is a shift. This league, for all its growth, hasn't always been friendly to players asserting their needs early on. But Caitlin Clark is forcing the conversation forward. She's proving that success isn't just measured in buckets. It's measured in leadership, in culture, in the long-term health of the locker room. That's what she's preserving here. A locker room that functions. A foundation that feels stable. A structure that lets her thrive and keeps her teammates engaged. Because here's the truth no one talks about. Superstars are only as good as the environment around them. You can average 30 points a game and still lose every night if your system is broken. If your teammates don't trust each other. If your franchise is more reactive than strategic. Clark knows that. She's not just protecting herself. She's protecting the chance to win. And that's why this move matters more than the headlines suggest. It's not about Caitlin Clark being a star with demands. It's about Caitlin Clark having a vision and using her platform to make sure it doesn't get torn apart by careless decisions. That's how you build something that lasts. The Fever were smart enough to listen this time. Let's see if they keep listening. Because Clark's not going anywhere. And neither is her influence. She's not a player you just build around. She's a player you build with. So what happens next? That depends on whether the league is ready to follow her lead or fight the inevitable. Because the age of passive stars is over. The age of players sitting on the sidelines while their support systems get cut out from under them? Done. Caitlin Clark just showed everyone how it's going to go from here. Speak with intention, protect your culture, and don't be afraid to hold your team to a higher standard. This moment, Clark stepping in and reshaping her team's future, is not just about the Fever. It's a signal to the entire WNBA that the dynamics have changed. Completely. The old blueprint? A rookie comes in, finds her spot, earns her minutes, and maybe by year 5, she starts having a little say in how things go. But Caitlin Clark didn't wait 5 years. She didn't even wait 5 months. And the league isn't ready for what that really means. Because this wasn't just an ask. This was a boundary. Clark drew it clearly. If you want me at my best, if you want the full version of the player who just put this franchise back on the map, then you protect the pieces that make that possible. The fact that she had the awareness and nerve to say it this early in her career, that's the shift. That's what makes this different from anything we've seen before. She's not trying to run the front office. She's trying to prevent the people upstairs from ruining what she's building on the court. And that line, that very thin line between ego and leadership, Clark is walking it perfectly. Her move to protect Sophie Cunningham and Lexi Hull wasn't some emotional outburst. It was calculated, tactical, grounded in basketball, not sentiment. These are players who contribute to her flow, who know her game, and more importantly, who match her mindset. And if you've ever played on a team, at any level, you know how rare that is. That kind of synchronicity can't be replaced with a trade or filled with a new face off the waiver wire. When Clark heard the rumors that Cunningham and Hull might be on the chopping block, she didn't wait until it was too late. She didn't sit back and process the disappointment afterward like most players are forced to. She moved first, quietly, directly, and effectively. And that's the part that's shocking. Not that she has power, but that she's already learning how to use it. The Fever, to their credit, responded the way any smart organization would. They backed their star. Because they know that in today's league, star power is more than just what you do with the ball in your hands. It's how you shape the environment around you. The minute they drafted Caitlin Clark, they committed to building around her. And building around her means understanding what allows her to lead, to play freely, to perform at her highest level. That starts with chemistry. It starts with connection. And cutting players she trusts? That would have shattered all of that. This was a critical early test for Indiana. Do you know who you're building with? Do you really understand how to build around a generational player? They got it right this time. Barely. But the message has been sent across the league. Clark's not waiting for a permission slip. She's building the conditions she needs to win, and she's doing it faster than anyone anticipated. Think about what this means long-term. Other stars in the WNBA, especially the next generation, are watching how this unfolds. Because Clark isn't operating with selfishness. She's operating with clarity. And in a league where so many teams struggle with continuity and churn through rotations, Clark is standing up for something foundational, stability. And not the fake kind, where you talk about culture while letting good role players walk out the door. Real stability, real culture, one where players are invested in each other, where chemistry isn't an accident. It's protected on purpose. Cunningham and Hull, they're not just warm bodies on the roster. They're part of the ecosystem Clark is trying to build. And she knew what losing them would mean, not just statistically, but spiritually. And here's the real genius of it all. She didn't do it with drama. There was no meltdown, no leaked audio, no cryptic posts. She handled it with composure. She had the conversations, made her expectations known, and let her influence do what it does. That's the new standard. She didn't just protect her teammates. She protected the entire tone of the franchise. And let's be honest, when you're a rookie, this kind of leadership is unheard of. But Clark has never followed the script. She didn't at Iowa, and she's not going to start now. She understands that real power isn't about shouting. It's about being able to walk into a room, say a few words, and have the entire structure shift around you. That's what just happened in Indiana. And now that it's happened once, it'll happen again. Because the Fever are learning in real time that Clark isn't just the most valuable scorer on the team. She's the most valuable decision maker. And the more they trust her judgment, the stronger this franchise gets. So what happens if they don't listen next time? That's the real question. Because now they know where she stands. Now, they've seen what happens when she steps up and asserts her influence. If Indiana ever forgets how fast she can take that spotlight with her, they'll be reminded the second things unravel. Because Clark's not bluffing. She's not making empty threats. She's building something, and she won't hesitate to protect it no matter how uncomfortable that makes upper management. And that's the pressure every WNBA front office is now feeling. The pressure to collaborate with players instead of just managing them. Because players like Caitlin Clark don't want to be employees. They want to be partners. This is the future of the league. And Clark is dragging it there, one power move at a time. And don't let her age fool you. This isn't youthful rebellion. This is intentional, strategic leadership. And it's working. The Fever are still in the early stages of their rebuild, but thanks to Clark, they're not just a trending topic. They're a relevant franchise with a defined culture. And every move she makes from here is going to solidify that identity further. So yeah, saving Cunningham and Hull might look like a small footnote in the grand scheme of the season. But if you zoom out, you'll realize this was the moment Clark said, "I'm not just here to play, I'm here to lead. And you're either with me or in the way." Let us know where you land. Was this the right kind of leadership for a young player to show? Should front offices across the league be following this model? Hit that like button if you see what Clark is building. Drop a comment if you've got thoughts on how player influence is shifting the WNBA. And make sure to subscribe if you're keeping up with the biggest shakeups in women's basketball, because this league just changed, and Caitlin Clark is at the center of all of it.